Now rewind, and here's the part. This morning you stood in. Maybe it was for the weather.
So, what were we doing all that time?
Either way, it took you about 4 seconds. Freezing, mostly. Let's start with the hair. But losing your fur for a shockingly then around 100. So a biologist named. There are two kinds of lice. Reed's team sequence that do the math on that for a second. Humans lost their body hair around 1 million years ago. We didn't start covering ourselves back up until about 170,000 years ago. That's over 800,000 years of being a bare, shivering primate with nothing between us and the weather. We weren't slow because we were unintelligent. We just hadn't needed it yet, until the climate stopped cooperating. That 170,000 year mark lines up almost exactly with an ice age. Earth was heading into a serious. The lice tell us clothing existed. They don't tell us what it looked like. For that, you need actual objects, and those show up much later, in a cave on the Atlantic coast of Morocco. An archaeologist named Emily Hallett was sorting through around 12,000 animal bones from a site called Contrabandier's Cave. She wasn't looking for clothing. She was trying to reconstruct what people there had eaten. But some of the bones didn't look like food waste. They were smooth,
Polished.
shaped into points and edges that had no business showing up naturally. 62 of them turned out to be tools, carved from rib bones, dated to between 120. Someone in that cave was processing hides on purpose, using specialized tools built for exactly that job. That's not someone accidentally wrapping a hide around themselves for one cold night. That's a process. A skill passed down. Early leatherworking. Put the two discoveries together and you get a rough timeline. Clothing became common around 170,000 years ago, and by 90,000 years ago, humans in Morocco had turned it into a specialized craft. But there's still a gap. Draping a hide over your shoulders is one thing. Making something that actually fits your body is another. That leap shows up in a different kind of tool, the sewing needle. The oldest ones we've found, small-eyed needles carved from bone, date to around 40,000 years ago. An eyed needle means thread. Thread means someone is piecing together fitted garments instead of just wrapping loose fur around themselves. That's the difference between a blanket and a jacket. And that difference mattered more than you'd think. Here's the part that actually explains why any of this matters for the bigger picture. Around 100,000 years ago, humans started migrating out of Africa into colder latitudes, Europe, Central Asia, eventually Siberia. According to Reed's research, that migration happened roughly 70,000 years after clothing became a regular part of human life. Not before.
After.
In other words, clothing didn't follow humans into the cold. Clothing is what made going into the cold survivable in the first place. A hairless primate from a hot climate does not walk into an ice age and just tough it out. That primate needs insulation it wasn't born with. Fitted, sewn insulation is the reason we could live somewhere our bodies were never designed for. So the next time you grab a jacket without thinking about it, that instinct is standing on top of one of the oldest survival technologies our species ever built. It's easy to think of clothing as decoration. Something about identity, or fashion, or how you want to be seen. And sure, that's part of it now. But the deeper layer is that clothing is the reason our species exists outside of Africa at all. Every winter coat, every pair of... We didn't evolve to survive the cold. We invented our way into surviving it instead. So here's the question worth sitting with. How many of the things you rely on every single day started out as a desperate solution to staying alive and just quietly became normal? Comment below. What's one everyday object